Hey, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about pointing out the obvious. And sometimes I believe that we need to be reminded about, about the obvious things that we have to do with ourselves to keep healthy, um, to enrich our lives, to make it better for us and easier for us to live by. Sometimes what's happened to me is that I get cluttered with so much stuff in my head at times that I forget to do certain things. That's why it's good to have some sort of a plan. It's good to have some sort of a task, a daily routine that you do, um, because at times we are so bogged down with daily life stuff that we forget. And it's what I've noticed that a lot of folks that they follow financial advice, they're being told by many people pretty much the same things, right? Like, hey, out of every dollar that you get, save 10 cents or 5 cents or whatever it is. Uh, Aside from savings, invest, max out your 401k. And these are things that are constantly recurring. And these are things that are constantly told by all the finance people. And it's incredible because you find people that have followed these advices before or have been told to follow them, but then they fall back in the hole. I know particular people in my life that they've gone through a couple of bankruptcies that have refinanced their mortgages because they end up doing things that they shouldn't. They can't afford certain things, but they want to be able to just completely go out there and say live their life and the whole YOLO jazz. And it's cool. It's a nice thing to do, but then come consequences, right? But we always need to be reminded of the obvious. That's why there's so many books on finance and self-help with finance, um, and it's all out there because people keep making the same mistake over and over again. They keep getting into debt. They keep seeing the car that the neighbor is driving. They keep seeing the house that the neighbor has. They keep seeing the kitchen that the neighbor remodeled. And it's like I'm guilty of, not jealousy, but saying, wow, I wish I had that at my house too. Right. Um, because it looks nice and you wish you could remodel and reinvent your space. But at the same time, you have to ask, can I do that right now? Is it worth it? Should I do that right now? Um, and these are things that if you can afford and it's not going to put a dent in your finances, then yeah, go right ahead. But if you cannot afford to do that, and when you say if you can afford, there are some finance people that say pay it outright, full cash. That means you could afford it. If you have to refinance or put it on a credit card that's going to have a balance on it, and that type of payment activity, then it's not worth it, right? So, but going back to the whole obvious, um, we need to be reminded of the obvious all the time, okay? And it's just something that helps us, and because sometimes we need to either clear our heads or sometimes we need to revisit things and re-listen to them again, reread a book perhaps, to be reminded of what's needed and what's not, what is a want and what versus a need, um, and how you don't have to worry about what your neighbor's driving, just worry about your car working, right? And that it doesn't have any problems. These are all um, money ideas that help out. And I understand that there's people that say, but that means I'm never going to get something. That's not true. That's not true. I'll tell you one of my sacrifices that I made when I was younger and I was living with my parents was that I saved and saved and saved and saved. It took me a long time, but I was able to put a down payment on an apartment that I bought. And in doing that, I was able to fulfill home ownership. And it was just a nice thing to do. And, later down the road, I noticed what had happened during that time, which was that I really restricted myself from a lot of things, from going out, from eating out too much. It was a smart thing to do because I was all saving. I would save my entire paychecks that I was getting, and I wasn't getting paid that much. I was getting paid little. But the fact that I was able to do that for almost 2 years, um, it was very much a matter of discipline, and that really helped me to understand how money works because I was able to save, and with those savings, I bought something which turned out to be an investment, which later on grew into something bigger, right? So then that helped me, create a credit. It helped me gain some profit. It helped me get into another property. So these are things that were done simply by me listening to being told, hey, save money, save money. But why? Why is it that we like to be reminded of the obvious so much? And I think the reason is that we create bad habits as we go down in life. And I'm talking from experience. As I've gone through life, I've created bad habits. The bad habits took over the things that were good in my life before, and I was no longer following. Such as, before I had a budget that I was following very meticulously. Right now, I'm getting back into that, but I didn't have it for a while. So that type of habit was super important for me because it helped me manage my money. And it just told me what I could and could not afford. So that would be something obvious that needs to be revisited at times so that you remember, I remember when I had this experience that I had more money saved in the bank and I didn't spend that much because I was following a certain budget of mine. What about eating healthy? What about doing exercise? People always have to listen to these things. That's why these companies or these people that are always talking about exercise, finance, eating healthy, they're huge because they're just restating the same thing over and over again. Restating the same thing over and over again. Perhaps they're doing something slightly different, but at the end, it's the same thing over and over again. So here I am as another guy that's going to repeat some of the same things for you to make the right decisions in helping you with keeping more of your money, investing a little bit smarter, and just making the right decisions for your future. So if you like what you saw and you heard, please hit like and subscribe so that way you can get more of these videos. Thank you very much for your time.